Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in for today's presentation. We're excited to be presenting this webinar about the new version of Linkurious Enterprise, the version 2.7. So let's jump into it. Okay, so first, a quick word of introduction. My name is Elise. I am a marketing project manager here at Linkurious, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by Jocelyn, who is our senior product manager.
Hi, everybody.
So the agenda for today's session is going to be divided into 4 parts, basically. First, I will give a bit of details about this new release. Then I will look into more in depth about what's new. Jocelyn will then conduct a demo of the new features, and we will wrap up with a Q&A session. So feel free during the presentation to ask your questions using the Q&A panel or the conversation chat, and we will make sure to address all of them at the end of the presentation. So it should last around 30 minutes, something like that, and we will send you the slides of the presentation at the end of the session. But first, I would like to give a brief words of introduction about our platform, Linkurious Enterprise, for those of you that might not be familiar with it. So Linkurious Enterprise is our main product. It's a graph visualization and analysis software that helps teams of analysts make sense of large volumes of connected data. So today we have clients using our Linkurious Enterprise for threat detection and investigation, and those threats are tied to financial crime. We have some money laundering or bank fraud, for example. There are also intelligence threats such as terrorism or cybersecurity issues. Linkurious Enterprise is broader-based, and it works on top of graph databases such as Neo4j, Cosmos DB, or Janus Graph. And last year, we released the version 2.6 that brought many changes to the interface and changes in terms of design and usability of the software. So 2.7 is the new one. It's been under development for a couple of months now, and yeah, it brings as well its fair shares of novelties. So our main focus was on helping users automate repetitive or complex investigation workflow that they may have, but we wanted to do that without them losing the autonomy that the platform brings for non-technical users. So without further ado, let's see what's inside 2.7. First, we have developed a new version of the query template. So for those of you that might not be familiar with the query template, it's basically a feature in Linkurious Enterprise that gives you the ability to create queries with a node variable. So they can be saved and run by anyone, any users, from a single right click on the node in the investigation interface. But in this second version of the query template, we went beyond the single node input, and basically it lets you create now custom-made workflows to enhance investigator capabilities. And as Jocelyn will show during the demo, this brings a lot of possibilities in terms of automation and also autonomy for non-technical domain experts. So another element that we've been working on is offering a better query creation and execution experience. Basically here what we did was improving the query management page, which is now a full-size page. So you can properly manage and see your queries when you are working with them. We also added a preview window, as we will see later, inside the query editor. So here the idea is for you to check the result of any query you are writing while you are writing it. And a third big novelty for administration this time is that you can now deploy the Linkurious Enterprise server inside a Docker container. So that could be on-premise or in the cloud, but we will discuss the detail of the Docker support a bit after the demo. And finally, another addition, it's the support for Neo4j search. So basically, Linkurious Enterprise, we now support Neo4j built-in search index. So it was introduced in Neo4j 3.5. And yeah, that's another indexing option that you can choose from. And yeah, that's the key enhancement for the version 2.7. So I will now hand it over to Jocelyn for a demonstration of all of this.
Thank you. So I'm going to focus on the template part because there have been a lot of work on this, on the templates and on the experience. So the demo outline is the following. We will have three parts. The first one will be about the experience of writing standard queries and query templates. In the second part, I will cover the evolution for query templates v2. And in the third part, I'm going to cover sharing options and access rights. So I guess let's jump into the demo. Just so that you know, we are using a dummy data set that contains people, that contains bank accounts, and that contains money transfers. So what's up with the queries and templates? There have been some changes to the query management page, and we are going to look into that. The query panel is still accessible through the magic wand in the upper left. So here it is. As Elise said, it's now full page. You have the three tabs as you used to have with standard queries, query templates, and query editor. So let's focus on the queries list for a moment. This list contains all the queries that I created myself and all the queries that were shared with me. So here I only have one query, and for each query I can see its sharing status. So this one is one that I created myself and that is not shared with anybody. I have a few options available. The first one obviously is to run it. But as I'm the owner of this query, I also have the option to edit it or to delete it, and I can view its details. The template list works basically the same, so I'm going to focus now on the query editor. This query right here will return clusters of at least 3 people connected through money transfers. We have a new option which allows me to load the code of this query into the editor. So I'm going to do just that. Here it is. So this is the code of this query. And you can notice that now we have a preview button that wasn't before, and we have this preview area. I guess if you have written queries before, you know that you usually don't get it right the first time. The goal of the preview here is to be able to validate your query. That means to make sure that what you get is what you intended on getting. So let's have a look at this query and try to preview it. It's going to take 1 or 2 seconds, and here it is. This is the result of my query, and I have the option to rewrite it if it's not exactly what I wanted. To validate that it's actually what I wanted, I can check the details of the nodes or the edges, and I can expand a node like here, Elizabeth Goyette, and I can also check the nodes that have been expanded. Once you are done with validating your query, you have 2 options: either saving the query. I already saved this one, so I'm not going to do that. And the other option is to add results to the workspace. When you add results to the workspace, you will add all the nodes that were returned by the query, the nodes that were initially returned. Meaning that the nodes that were added later on, like this one that I added through an expand, won't be added to the workspace. You can differentiate the nodes that were initially returned from the one that were later added with this blue halo that you can see around the nodes that were initially returned. Let's add these results to the workspace. Here we go. That's how the query editor experience changed for the standard queries. We're going to see now what happens when we try to validate templates. I'm just going to hit back to get back to the previous situation, and I'm going to load a query template this time. So let's look at this one, money transfer connection. I'm going to do the same, load it in editor. As you can notice that the preview area is still here. You still have a preview button, but there is now a form here with one input called myparam, and this is here because the engine detected a variable in the code, namely this one. So you can see the curly braces, and it tells me that I can here look for a node. Now what I can do is use this input to search for a node. I can search either in the database or in the underlying visualization. So for example, I'm going to type guard. I have a node here in the, so local means in the underlying visualization, I have the node gardenia red. I can search in the whole database as well. And you can see that gardenia red also shows up here with this little badge, local, meaning that it's in the underlying visualization. So I'm gonna select it and I'm gonna run it. And here is my results. So that's about it for the changes we made to the experience of creating and using queries and templates. Now you can validate your queries from within the editor instead of saving and then validating in the workspace. You can do it all from here. I'm going to jump to the part 2 of the presentation, and I'm going to tell you about how we have improved the templates in this version 2.7. So there are we improved the templates in 3 different ways. The first one is I can now run a template on multiple nodes at once. Evolution 2, I can use new variables. I can add, new variable to the template, such as numbers or dates. And evolution 3, I can now write templates that take 2 or more nodes as inputs. So let me start with evolution 1. I can now run a template on multiple nodes at once. To demonstrate that, let's get rid of everything but gardenia, and let's look up someone called Howell Eggman. So we have these 2 nodes, but we could have more of them. I'm going to select both of them, and when I right-click on either of them, I have my queries option in my context menu. It's displaying this money transfer connection template that I created for 1 node, but now I can run it on 2 nodes or multiple nodes at once. Let's try it. Here we are. So we ran this template on both Gardenia Red and Howell Eggman. Moving on to evolution 2. I can now run templates with new input types. I'm gonna clear the workspace except for Howell Eggman. So I created a variation of the previous template that is going to take a transfer minimum amount and the money transfer date as input. Let's run it on Howell. So the variation is this one. So here it goes. So basically here you can see that now we have a template popping up, sorry, not a template, form popping up with a transaction minimum amount. So I'm going to input 5,000. And minimum transaction date, I'm here going to use the 1st of January 2017. And I'm going to run it. Here we go. So I don't know if you noticed, but in the previous version, when we ran the first version of the template, Howell Eggman was connected to 3 persons through transaction. Now we only have one showing up. It's because there is only one of them, of the 3 of them, that have an amount that is above 5,000 and a date that is posterior to the 1st of January 2017. So this second evolution lets you add what we call non-graph inputs. These inputs can be of type date, number, enumeration, Boolean, or string. So if you're interested in that, I'm going to let you look up the documentation to see how to write and to create this kind of variables in your templates. Moving on now to evolution 3. So you can now write templates that take 2 nodes as inputs. So what examples do we have of functions that take 2 nodes as inputs? Well, we have the famous shortest path that takes a source node and a destination node. What you can do now is create your own shortest path query template. For those who have played with the shortest path in the past, you probably reach the conclusion that it does not exactly fit your need, at least not always, because you need your shortest path to go through a specific type of edge, or you need to avoid specific node categories in the path. For this seminar, I created a shortest path that needs to go through at least 1 transaction, and I added the option to set a minimum amount for that transaction. So to demonstrate that, let's clear the workspace, and I'm gonna look for Gardenia that we saw earlier, and I'm gonna bring up River Wisdom. So let's say that I want to find the shortest path between these 2 nodes, but I want this shortest path to go through a transaction, and a transaction with a minimum amount. So I'm going to select both of them, and I'm going to find my shortest path, my custom shortest path. When I run it, I still have my source node, my destination node, and I can enter here my transaction minimum amount, and I'm going to run it, and here it is. So I'm here getting a different result than if I was actually doing a standard or regular shortest path. Let me try that out. Here, I'm using the regular shortest path. Now there are options about path length and number of paths, so that you can make sure that you're not gonna take down your database by running something that is too massive. And you can see that the regular shortest path is actually this one, the one going through this address, because it's of length 2. So my custom shortest path allowed me to kind of find the kind of path that I was interested in. So I'm done for this second part, and I'm going to quickly recapitulate. You can now run templates on multiple nodes at once. You can create templates that take 1 node, 2 nodes, or multiple nodes as input. And you can create templates that take as many non-graph inputs as you want. These inputs can be of type string, number, date, date time, or enumeration. I'm going to now finish with the access rights and the sharing options. We have added an option, a new permission for queries and templates. It's a permission to execute queries, but not write them. This is useful if you have non-tech users that need to use templates written by others, but when you don't, when you don't want these users to be able to write any query or template. So this is what we see here. Before you had these two permissions, you could either create and execute read queries, or you could create and execute read and write queries. Now we have a permission that allows you to only execute queries. I'm going to quickly show the difference that it makes for a user that has only this execution permission. To do that, I'm gonna look at this user. This user has only execution permission. Well, as you can see here, I have only these two tabs, and I don't have the query editor. Here, I would see only the templates and queries that were shared with me. Getting back to our admin account, I'm going to show you how what we changed for the sharing options. We added one capability, that is to be able to share a template or a query with a group of users or a list of groups of users. So if I go, for example, let's look at this query. It's the same for templates. I can edit it. And here I have this sharing option. And you can see that we also have the preview in the edit in case you want to modify your query. But there is here a sharing option. If I decide to share, I have the option to share either with all users or to share only with specific groups. And here I can select the groups I want to share this query with. Well, I guess that's about it. So let me quickly recap all the evolutions that we brought to the query templates in this version 2.7. First, we added a result preview so that you can validate your queries within the query editor. Then we added batch execution, meaning that you can select multiple nodes and run a template on all of them at once instead of clicking on each of one on one after another. We added 2 nodes inputs or two plus nodes inputs in case you have use cases for that. We added new variable types. So I mentioned dates, numbers, enumerations. We added this execution rights for non-tech domain experts that you don't want to have writing queries. And we had a new option to share with groups. And that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Jocelyn, for this demo. We hope that it gave you a better understanding of the new features that are shipping with the version 2.7. As I'm going to talk a bit about the backend feature, as I mentioned earlier, Linkurious Enterprise now supports Docker version, the container platform. So we had some requests coming in about supporting Docker for a couple of months now, and it's now possible, if you want, with version 2.7 to deploy the Linkurious Enterprise server to the cloud or on premises inside a Docker container. So for the cloud deployment, we currently support Amazon Web Service, and we are considering adding support for Azure and Google Cloud in the coming months. So if you have specific needs regarding that, please ping us. We'll make sure to review your needs. The container is not available on Docker Hub or Amazon Marketplace, but if you're interested, you can download it from your administration account, which is the account where you download the Linkurious Enterprise. And before moving to the Q&A, another backend improvement is the recent beta support for Neo4j built-in search index. So as you might know, Neo4j search was introduced with Neo4j 3.5, and it added full text indexing and search to the graph database. So you can now choose it as your default search index when you configure Linkurious Enterprise in place of the embedded Elasticsearch instance. What's interesting there is that you get continuous indexation and the indexation time is way faster for large databases. Okay, so I think, oh yeah, we have a little slide about what's coming next for 2.8. Jocelyn?
Yes, so we are indeed already working on version 2.8. Our focus in this new version is to handle dates and time correctly. Dates are tricky as they can be stored in many different formats. It can be stored as string values, as native dates, or timestamps. In order to be able to properly interpret dates, we decided to introduce a schema declaration feature. This feature will bring additional benefits beyond proper time handling. I'm going to mention two of them. The first one is that you will now have data creation templates. It means that if you let some of your users create new entities, they will be provided with a blueprint for that. And therefore, they won't be able to corrupt the data in the database. The second benefit is that we'll be able to provide a timeline that will allow users to filter the graph based on a time window. I hope that you are as excited about these new capabilities as we are, because we are very much looking forward to delivering 2.8.
Great, looking forward to that. Thank you, Jocelyn. So again, thank you for joining us, and a big thank you to all our clients that are helping us by giving feedbacks on the releases and by driving what we are building today. If you have additional question, feel free to reach out at contact@linkurious.us. You also have the documentation that is available in case you want to dig into some of the topics that we saw today. Thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you everyone.
Bye.